Welcome back. This is session 2 of the podcast guesting masterclass, and I am so excited to be here with you. And I am so happy that you are here investing your time to learn how to increase your visibility. It's January. It's the start of a new year. We're excited. We have goals and we're taking action. And I am so happy about that. I'm Jessica Rhodes, the founder and co-owner of Interview Connections. We are the world's first ever and leading done-for-you podcast booking agency. Since 2013, we've booked over 30,000 podcast interviews for hundreds upon hundreds of entrepreneurs. We've got over 800 clients. We've taught tens upon thousands of entrepreneurs through this free masterclass, and I'm so excited that you're one of them. In session 1, I taught you how to lay a strong foundation for your podcast guesting strategy. And today I'm going to teach you how to monetize your podcast appearances. So yesterday, as a quick recap, we talked about setting clear goals for your podcast guesting strategy. I cannot tell you how important it is to have clear goals. I was just doing an interview audit for one of our clients. And like when we do interview audits for our clients, we're going to listen for like the stories that you're sharing and what you're mentioning about your work and your call to action. And to know like what your call to action should be, which is what we're going to talk about in today's session. We want to make sure that ties back to your goal. So for example, if you tell us that your goal is to get more LinkedIn connections in DMs, but your call to action is sending people to a landing page, that's not aligned. So you have to know what your goal is because that is going to help inform the strategy for monetizing. We also discussed identifying your target audience. What are your goals? Who do you need to be speaking to reach your goal? And we talked about mindset shifts to make, pitfalls to avoid, and the 3 main elements of a podcast one sheet. Today, we are diving deeper into the podcast guesting strategy by talking about monetization. I would love to know from session 1, what was your biggest takeaway? I know some folk put it in the chat. Some folks were telling me like, I'm finally writing my bio. Like I've got my interview topics clarified. Like, tell me what was your biggest takeaway from session 1? What was the one thing? Because when you attend a masterclass, when you attend a training or you go to a conference, like it's actually best to come away with just a couple of clear action steps. So what was your biggest takeaway? To include questions with my topics. Isn't that huge? I mean, you think topics are perfect, but to give the host actual questions to ask you makes their job easier and it sets you up for success. I love that. Be more specific about topics. Totally. If you're too general, hosts are going to be like, it's too general. You know, they're not going to be excited and intrigued. So you want to pique their interest with some specificity. My biggest takeaway was the importance of the one sheet. Yes, Rick Harris. And everyone congratulate Rick Harris for being the first new Interview Connections client during the podcast guesting masterclass. Congratulations. Rick came to session 1 yesterday, booked his consultation call. We talked yesterday afternoon and he invested this morning. And so we are so excited to be booking Rick on podcast this year. So everyone congratulate Rick. We are so excited. All right. Excellent takeaways. Get out your workbook because we're going to have a lot more actionable takeaways in today's session. All right. Tomorrow is going to be a panel discussion. We're going to have some speakers coming in, people that have been working with Interview Connections for over a year on podcast guesting, and they're going to share how it's worked in their business, like what their call to action is, what are the results they've seen. So you'll be able to ask them questions and really understand like how this would work in your business. And then our bonus session, I added a 4th bonus session Thursday at 1 p.m. It's all about using AI to repurpose your podcast interviews and amplify your visibility online. Because it's not just going on a podcast and getting visible to that audience, but there's so much that you can do with this content that is produced for you to really take your visibility to new levels. So again, each session's recorded. The replays have been being sent out through email and text. We're going to put it in the chat. We'll put the link. Well, if you're watching this on replay, you're watching the replay, so you don't need the replay. But the replays come down Tuesday the 21st at midnight. So if you do need to catch up or rewatch anything, you've got about a week to do it. Okay, so many of you now know, even through session 1, that podcast guesting is the strategy that you need to implement in 2025. You're like, it's clear. This is definitely what I need to do. So if that is you, I invite you to book a call, just like Rick did yesterday. Book a call with me or Douglas so we can talk about your business specifically and see if our Amplified Authority program is the right next step for you. So now let's dive into today's session and talk about how to monetize the mic as a podcast guest. So give me a yes in the chat if you're ready to get some actionable strategies for monetizing your visibility as a podcast guest. Yes, 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 yes. Let's go. So get out your workbook because I'm going to guide you through writing down your notes so you can follow along with the strategy. So number one, your clients buy from you because they trust you. That's your first line on the workbook. They buy from you because they trust you. So write that down. Now, we've all heard of the know, like, and trust factor, right? In my opinion, if somebody likes you and they know who you are, that is not enough for them to buy from you. There's a lot of people that I like and that I know who they are, but I would not give them my money and I would not trust them with the problem I need to solve. Trust is the most important part. I don't even have to really like you a ton, but if I trust that you're going to solve my problem, I'm more willing to invest with you. Trust is the most important piece of that puzzle. And so podcast guesting is the most effective way to earn trust online from thousands of people very, very quickly. Why is this so? When you're a guest on podcasts, you are sharing your expertise and your story, and you're doing it not just on your own, because anyone can, open up the camera on their phone, film a video, post it to social media, sharing their story. But the difference of sharing your story on a podcast in an interview is that you're doing it with a host, with a podcast host that the audience already knows, likes, and trusts. And so you're getting this tacit endorsement from the host while also introducing yourself and sharing your story and giving value to the audience, right? So the listeners are now trusting you more because they're getting to know you. The host is trusting you more and more because they're able to ask questions. So if there's anything about your answers where they're like a little bit curious about, they're able to ask those questions and dig a little deeper and dig a little deeper. So by the end of the interview, they're like, okay, like I've got all my bases covered. How do I work with you? And that's a huge part of monetizing your podcast appearances is the, motivating and attracting the podcast host to say, how could I work with you? Like, what does it look like to work with you? All right. So I'm going to, also tell your story in a saturated, commoditized market where everyone is competing for attention, specifically on on social media with short form clickbaity content. Your story is what makes you stand out. So that's what you're going to write down in your workbook. The one thing that sets you apart from everyone else in your industry is your story. Your story is the only thing. There could be other businesses in your industry that have the same service, that have the same price point, that have great case studies and testimonials, but it is your story that is going to make you different and unique. And so I'm going to share a little story here, but put it in the chat. What about you and your story makes you unique? What is one thing about you and your story? It could be business, it could be personal, that nobody else in your industry, no other competitors you have could actually claim that. So for me, I often share in podcast interviews and conversation, there's a lot about me personally that makes me unique. I'm a mom of 2 kids. My daughter does competitive cheer. I've got a soccer playing son. I've got backyard chickens. My background before starting Interview Connections is I led a door-to-door canvas for a nonprofit environmental group. So I come from activism and door-to-door work. And then business-wise, like my dad helped me start my business. My dad was my first client. And so when I share my story, people who resonate with some aspect of it will feel connected. I can't tell you how many clients I've enrolled who have said, I love that your dad helped you start your business. Like, I love that. Like, I worked with my dad too. Or I love that you work for a nonprofit before starting your business. Like, I work in a nonprofit too. Like, something about your story is going to create an emotional bond with somebody in the audience that's going to have them say, like, I trust you. I know you, I like you because of your story, not just because like we have the best service. We do, but it's actually your story that's going to attract people to want to work with you. Speaking of Rick, so Rick, who signed up this morning on our call towards the end, he's sharing with me that he's a punk rock music fan. I'm like, Rick, like I was a punk rock fan in middle school. Like I had the studded belt and we were going on this whole conversation about how we both are fans of punk rock music. Like, I don't think that's ever come out, but in conversation, it just created another level of like connection. So it wasn't just like, business owner Jess and business owner Rick, like becoming working partnerships. It was like, oh, we have this mutual interest. So share your story. It's what sets you apart. It's what allows people to see you as more than just this business owner or this expert who can talk about this topic. And I'm talking about this in a session about monetization because you will close more sales when you share your story. When you share your story, you're going to attract more people to want to work with you. So I'm going to look at some of the comments here because you guys are sharing such amazing stories. We've got Baba Sam who says, I was a sick and disabled man for 38 years with multiple sclerosis, bipolar, other extreme health issues. I had a spontaneous healing. I help individuals go beyond their mind's BS. I love that. Like that is deep. Like there's so much to unpack there. So anyone that can relate with any of those challenges is going to say like, I want to talk to Baba Sam more. I love it. Unique career experiences in a variety of decision-making roles throughout, dealing with grief at a young age as a man and navigating personal, family, and societal expectations of men and loss. I love it. And think about that. Like when I was kind of preparing for today, I was thinking about people that help you, like trauma healers, people that do healing work. Well, every single person who has been called to do that type of work has their own unique story and their own background. And they're going to attract clients that connect with that story, that resonate with how they got to where they are. So share your story and share it more than you think is needed, because you'll get to a point where you're like, I've already shared my story 100 times. And that is just scraping the surface because people need to hear it over and over again. And there's so many people out there that don't know you yet. So you are going to have to share your story thousands of times. And that is just the name of the game. Like that is what's going to help you monetize the best. There has also never, ever in the world been a more powerful time to show your humanness and to share your story than right now because of how much marketing is automated and how much marketing is led by AI and of bots. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like Douglas and I love leveraging ChatGPT and AI to be more effective and to get more done in less time. However, if all of your marketing is just AI, there's no humanness to it. So you've got to still show up and speak and share your story to make sure that your listeners and your audience can have that emotional connection with you and understand who you are. Now, that being said, AI is a really powerful tool to amplifying your authority online. So in your workbook for today, I know it's not like totally in chronological order, but you want to write this down as one of your key monetization strategies. So number 2 under key monetization strategies, amplifying my authority online with my podcast appearances. One specific action that you could take to do that is to use AI to edit your podcast appearances and post them on social media. And I'm going to be giving you a full tutorial in session 4 on Thursday on how to do that. So if you're like, Jess, like what tool, how do I do it? I'm going to literally walk you through it. But that is one action you can take to really amplify your authority online, is to leverage AI to take these podcast appearances and to post them as short form videos across your social media. So it's a really good action step that can really grow your business. Podcast guesting isn't just about sharing your story. It's obviously a really important piece. It's also about relationships. And one of the most overlooked yet powerful opportunities in podcast guesting is the connections that you form with podcast hosts, the people that actually are interviewing you, not just their audience, but the people who are interviewing you. So let's dive into networking with the hosts of the show and how that can open doors for collaborations, referral partnerships, and even new sales. So once you reach a certain point in business, and I'm sure many of you are at this point, one-on-one networking calls becomes very difficult to fit into your schedule. Like I encourage it for those that it makes sense to in your schedule, like to have one-on-one, like virtual coffee chats and virtual tea chats and one-on-one networking conversations. But once when you're growing and running a thriving business, you don't always have time. And you always, I feel bad saying it, like you don't have time to talk to people one-on-one. It's important, but it's not always realistic when you're busy and you have a lot on your plate. But that doesn't mean networking is not effective and it's not important, because business is built on relationships. Like, your best clients probably came to you by referral. A relationship that you have referred a great client to you. And so we don't want to just say, like, you reach a certain point and you stop networking. We need to find a way to make it more scalable. And that's exactly what podcast guesting does for you. It makes your networking more scalable. And so what this looks like is you actually want to get interviewed on podcasts where the host looks like somebody that could be a potential client or could be a referral partner. Because what will happen is you get on the show and you have a conversation with the host in the green room before the show. And so when I say green room, think about like if a comedian is going to perform at a theater, there's a room backstage. It's called the green room. It's like the room they're in before the show. In podcast guesting, we call that the virtual green room. And so you're going to have a conversation with the host in the green room before the show. Then they're going to turn on the recording. They're going to interview you. And then they're going to talk with you after the show in the green room. And the cool thing that happens in the green room after the show, a lot of times with hosts who are ideal clients, is they'll say, how can I work with you? So I was on a podcast last week, and the host of the show in the green room after the interview, like as soon as he stopped recording, he was like, okay, so what does it look like to work with you? And what's the investment? And how can I book a call? He's talking to Douglas at 2 p.m. today. So hosts are ideal clients. They're people that can become referral partners. So now I'm going to pause right there. Say yes in the chat if you resonate with this next sentence. My clients need to be educated about my methodology or strategy before they invest. I'm going to say that again. My clients need to be educated about my methodology or my strategy before they invest. Yes. Okay, so you guys got that. So it's as simple as, for me, I'm offering a marketing service, right? I book people on podcasts. I do this masterclass because I know a lot of our clients want and need to be educated about podcast guesting before they invest in getting booked on podcasts. If you're a healer, if you're a consultant, like anything that you do as a service, you probably need clients to understand it to an extent to want to invest in it. All right. So this is really, really huge. And this is directly going to help you monetize your podcast appearances. Now, as you think about this, I want to tell you about Julia Blackwell. She is the creator of the Fascia Remedy. And in the 2 years in her business prior to signing up with Interview Connections and getting on podcasts, she had closed 22 sales of her program, 22 sales in 2 years. And then in 1 year of podcast guesting, she closed over 80 sales. And so this massive increase in sales was a direct result of podcast guesting, because she was not only visible to new audiences, but she was visible in a way where she could educate them. Because who's going to invest in a program about fascia if you don't know what fascia is? So she's going on podcasts and explaining what it is and explaining the connection to, like, there are people going about their daily lives with massive pain in their hips and they have no idea what's causing it. And if they hear a podcast interview with her explaining fascia and explaining how, wow, if you can do these techniques to release and open up your hips, you'll be out of pain. And people are like, sign me up. Like, I didn't even know this thing existed. So educating your audience, going on podcasts and educating about what you do is going to create so many light bulbs in the minds of your audience, to the point where they're like, where do I sign up? How do I get started? And what she also does is she gives a call to action, which we're going to dive into more deeply in a minute, to get a free video series, because people hear the podcast and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I didn't even know about this. And then she offers a free video series where they can actually experience her work before investing. And that is a perfectly simple yet very effective sales funnel that takes her podcast visibility and monetizes it to the point where she has quadrupled her sales in a year's time. All right. Now, tell me in the chat, who here does sales calls? Like, before you sign up a client, you're having a call with them, whether that's a discovery call, a consult call, a strategy call, like you're having a conversation with your clients before they make the investment. So let me know in the chat if that is you. Yes, at times. Yes. Perfect. Oh, Adrian's here. Adrian, one of my favorite podcast hosts. Yes. So if you do discovery calls, I'm going to give you a tip that you can write down as one of your action steps for generating more leads and sales in your business. So write this down. This is literally going to change your life. Okay. So before you have a call with a client, an incoming, prospective client, give them a link to a podcast appearance that you've done on somebody else's show and ask them to listen to it before they get on the call with you. I send my interview that I did on Adrian's podcast. And so this is a way for your prospective clients to see you as an authority, to see your thought leadership, to be educated, to hear your story, because let's be real, you're probably not on your sales calls being like, oh, let me tell you how I started my business. Unless people really ask you, that's not happening. But if you say, hey, go listen, would love for you to listen to this podcast. I will also do my research and get to know you before the call, but I would love for us to both come to this call prepared. And so give them an episode of your podcast. This is going to massively increase your close rate because you will take a cold lead and warm them right up with that podcast interview. So write that down, add that in. We have a template. So when we confirm a consultation call with a prospective client, there's a template and we kind of customize it with the date of their call, but we always send a podcast appearance out. So you could do this as somebody that's doing one-on-one calls. And this can also be done at a much larger scale. So our client, Mike Maynard, he is the managing director and CEO of the Napier Group, which is a very high seven-figure PR and marketing agency. They serve B2B tech companies. So they're serving enterprise level companies doing marketing and PR. And so his sales cycle is quite long, a year long. They're doing massive proposals for massive businesses. So it's not just here's an interview, come to a sales call and you're closed. He's putting together massive proposals. His leads, prospective clients are comparing him to many other big marketing firms. And he includes podcast appearances in his proposal because it sets his organization apart. It shows that his marketing agency is not just doing good work and has great case studies. It shows that the CEO is actually a thought leader. And what a way to look different in comparison to a lot of other companies that probably look kind of similar in terms of what they're offering and the results that they say they can get. It really sets you apart. And in a sales cycle that long, he's teasing many different podcast appearances. It's not just here's one interview. It's a way for him to stay top of mind and to stay visible. All right. So giving a podcast appearance to a prospective client is a really great way to monetize your podcast appearances. Because it's not, what I'm trying to do here is get you to think outside the box. This isn't just go get on a show and have the listeners become my client. I want you to see how you can take your podcast appearances and use them in so many different ways in your business and use it to amplify and improve your existing sales and marketing strategy. So for those of you who know, you heard that and you're damn, that right there was worth this whole masterclass. And you know that just simply having podcast appearances on really quality shows to send to your prospective clients would make a huge difference. Book a call with us. Book a call with me or Douglas. We'll put the link in the chat. Let's see if our program is the right fit for you, because the only missing piece now is just getting booked on podcasts, and we can do that for you. So interviewconnections.com/call. We'll put the link in the chat. All right. Let's dive into some more monetization strategies. All right. Who wants some more tips? So next, you're going to collaborate with the host. So this is another one of your key monetization strategies. You're going to write down an action step. I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas. So write down your favorite ones for how to collaborate with podcast hosts, because collaborations are what create a lot of sales in your business. So Interview Connections, the team there, our team is booking me on podcasts. So I am in this with you. I didn't just do podcast interviews for a while and say now I'll teach you. I actively get interviewed on 3 to 4 podcasts every single month. I execute, I walk my walk so that I can bring you fresh perspectives that work now. And I can see how the strategy has evolved after over a decade. And so Team Interview Connections books me on 3 to 4 shows a month. And one thing that I can tell you that I see now as compared to 10 years ago when 11 years ago when I started, was that hosts love collaborating with their guests. Podcasters do this for the guests, for relationships with the guests. That is why they are doing it. They're not trying to get famous. They have an interview-based podcast because they value relationships and they value connection and they value collaboration. So some ways that you can collaborate with podcast hosts to lead to more leads and sales in your business is set up an affiliate or a referral partnership. Maybe a podcast host has your audience. They have clients who are ideal clients for you. you could offer them an affiliate partnership. Like, do you want to be an affiliate? And everyone that comes from your audience, I'll pay you a commission if they become a client. And that's a really great way to get more sales, because typically you don't want to be pitching in the podcast appearance. You don't want to be selling. But if the host is an affiliate, they're going to be selling the heck out of your service because they're going to get a commission. So like, I was a guest on a podcast late last year. I was on Cliff Ravenscraft podcast, The Mindset Answer Man. And I've known Cliff for over a decade. He's been an Interview Connections affiliate partner for a long time. And so he interviewed me and we made a great show together, so much valuable tips on how to be a great guest. And because he is an affiliate, and anyone that becomes our client from that show, he'll get a commission. And he disclaims that, like he says, I am an affiliate partner. So everything's on the up and up. But there's a whole pitch for Interview Connections in our service because he's an affiliate. I closed a sale. Like, we have a client, Thurman, who's going to be on tomorrow's session, who heard me on that show. Like, that's how he found us. So having hosts become affiliate partners of your program or your service is a great way to monetize your podcast appearances. You can also join up and do some like Instagram lives or Facebook lives. You could be on their summit. Like, a podcast host who, like, I was on her show last year. She messaged me on Facebook yesterday and she said, hey, I'm putting together a summit. I really liked our podcast interview together and I would love for you to be one of the speakers. And so you'll have podcast hosts that are organizing summits and events who come back to you and say, I'd love for you to be one of the speakers because I've already had you on my show and I know that we vibe well together and you've got great value and great content. Similarly, our client, Timothy Wingate Jr., he's the founder and president of G&F Business and Financial Consultant. So he is a construction accountant. One of the hosts who interviewed him hired him as a speaker for his conference. And he got tons of leads and sales. Like, his business just exploded in the best way because a podcast host invited him to speak at his event. And so amazing things come out of your relationship with the host and your collaboration with the host. And so I'm sharing some examples of how hosts can like invite you to speak, but it's also very powerful for you to invite the host to speak. So another podcast host that interviewed me, his name is Tom Ruwich, Story Power Marketing Hour. I invited him to do a private training for Interview Connections clients because his whole expertise is in lead magnets and marketing funnels. And so I said, that's super relevant because our clients are getting visibility, they're getting more leads. And so if they had some more training on like building out their funnel, they would get more, a bigger ROI. And so I had him come in and do a private training for our clients. And it was a win-win because our clients got a ton of value from that training and he got some clients. Like, some of our clients became his clients and it was great. And so those are just a few ways that you can collaborate. So write down one way, like one of these strategies, these action steps that resonates with you, write it down in your workbook. So you remember, it's pen to paper, you're going to do it, and then share with us in the chat. Like, what is your one action step? When you're a guest on podcast this year, what's one thing that you're going to do to collaborate with podcast hosts? Put it in the chat. Oh, Julie says, love Cliff. He's good people. He for sure. A summit, absolutely. Yeah, maybe you're organizing a summit or you have an opportunity where you need speakers. You could go on podcasts and have the host be one of your speakers. What else? Put it in the chat. What's an action step you are going to put in place to collaborate with podcast hosts? Definitely set up affiliate links. That's huge. I mean, if you do referral partnerships already, definitely do it with podcast hosts. Do social posts, absolutely. So keep thinking about this, but take action on this because collaborating with podcast hosts is your biggest opportunity for monetizing your podcast appearances. Next, I talked a little bit about this, but the host becoming your client is a huge monetization strategy. I cannot tell you how many of our clients have come to us and said, the host became my client. The host became my client. The host became my client. This happens all the time because they're able to get to know you and ask you questions and to learn all about what you do. And if you have the solution that they're looking for, you're going to be top of mind because they trust you. So when you spend quality time with podcast hosts who are your ideal clients, you will get more sales because you're going to be in direct conversation with people who are a perfect fit for you. And they are seeing you and talking to you as a leader because you're on their podcast as an expert. All right. And this is another thing you can write down in your workbook as a key monetization strategy is actually having the host become your client. All right. So now let's talk about the call to action so we've talked about like leveraging the podcast appearances in your sales funnel and on social media with your prospective clients. We've talked about really leveraging your relationship with the host. So you collaborate with them, you inspire and motivate them to become your client. And now we have this audience, hundreds, thousands of people, depending on the size of the show, who are hearing you, who are listening to your story. How do we motivate them to actually come to our website? It's one of your workbook questions. Now, the host at the end of the episode is going to say, "This was amazing. How can our listeners find you online? How can they connect with you?" And this is your opportunity to share a call to action. So in your workbook, it's going to say, to motivate listeners to go to my website after they hear me on the podcasts, I need to deliver a strong call to action. That is it. So if you've done podcast interviews and you're like, I've done some, but I haven't really had a lot of people go to my website, chances are one of the main things that is missing for you is a strong call to action. And so looking at what are you sharing as your call to action? What is the free gift you're offering? Does it align with what your clients actually want, with what your target audience needs and values? Your call to action is where we spend a lot of time when it comes to monetizing, because you could give a great interview, but if your call to action is not effective, then you will not see many people go to your website after the interview. So that is really, really key. So 3 examples of calls to action that really work well that we've seen help our clients generate tons of leads and sales is, number 1, a discovery call, a strategy session. Many of you said you do sales calls, you do consultation calls, like that is a part of your sales funnel. After somebody hears you on a podcast, chances are they're like 80% of the way to wanting to work with you. You don't need to send them on the scenic route necessarily to go through this whole funnel. You could invite them directly to book a call with you. Okay. So a discovery call, a strategy session is a really effective call to action for a lot of high ticket business owners with a service. Mark Willis is a certified financial planner. He's been working with us for years. He's closed over 32 new clients from podcast appearances. He gives a CTA that is to book a call with his team, and he also gives a free copy of his book. So there's a gift, there's a call, it gets people in action, and it is just so, so effective. Number 2, a high value lead magnet. So this could be a checklist, like we give him a podcast interview prep checklist at interviewconnections.com/prep. So I'll give that away on podcasts for audiences where I feel like a nice like checklist lead magnet would work well. You can give an assessment or a quiz. Our client, Dr. Jolie, who's been working with us since 2020, she offers a quiz to help people know if opening up their relationship is a good fit. She's a relationship coach and she specializes in consensual non-monogamy. So it makes sense that her audience would want to take a quiz and see if that's the right next step for them. So a high value lead magnet that aligns with your goals and what your target audience values. And that is very important. I would write that down in your notes. My CTA needs to be something that my audience values and something that they want. If they don't want it, they won't get it. Or you could offer as a third idea an online community, like a Facebook group or a forum or, a Slack channel, a WhatsApp group. If you have a community where people get a lot of value from being a part of it, that could be your call to action. Now, as I mentioned, the CTA is your biggest domino in monetizing your podcast appearances. A bad CTA, an ineffective CTA is going to fall flat, and a really effective one is going to create a ton of people going to your website. And so we do a lot of coaching with our clients on this. We do a lot of strategy to guide and really look at what your goals are and who your target audience is and what is a typical sales cycle for your clients, and find that CTA that's going to be most effective. And so if you want to see what it looks like to work with us, because we can help you with that, book a call at interviewconnections.com/call. And Douglas or I will have a one-on-one chat to see if our service is the right fit and give you some insight on what type of CTA would be a good fit for you. So again, write down in your workbook so you can put this into action. What is a free gift that you could offer listeners that would get them to go to your website? And I would love for it to put that in the chat as well. I want to see what you guys are all thinking. What is going to be your call to action when you're a guest on podcast? Let's share some ideas for the group here. What is a call to action, a gift, something that you can tell the audience to do after they hear you on a podcast that is going to get them to kind of join your ecosystem? A free consumer guide. I love that. That's super valuable for your audience. Free contract templates. People love templates. So if you've got templates, checklists, something that is going to help them put into action, something that's tangible, really good CTA. Perfect. A quiz, a checklist, free onboarding, free discovery call, free diagnostic report. I love it. So this is perfect. This is really, really good, guys. So now let's do a quick recap. So at this point in the masterclass, we're halfway through the masterclass. You've now gained clarity on your goals for podcast guesting. You've got your target audience defined, and you have some kick-ass strategies for monetizing your podcast appearances. And you're all business owners, right? You're here because you're an entrepreneur and you want to gain visibility. You don't want to spend countless hours researching for shows. I mentioned this yesterday. We all have enough work on our plate. We don't need more. And you don't want to take all the time to find the shows, to vet them, to pitch them, to follow up, to face the rejection, to try to figure out which ones have guests and which ones don't, and which ones are still publishing. Like, it's a lot of work to actually get the placements and do it consistently. And you don't want to do this alone. Like, I have given you like a blueprint for how to be effective with podcast guesting. And I don't want you to leave me. I want to help you continue doing this all year long. So we're at the point in the masterclass where you have a really solid choice to make. You could keep doing this on your own and just stay where you are, or you can take empowered action, step into the spotlight, book a call, and work with Interview Connections to get booked on podcasts and ensure that you're going to be successful this year with this strategy. So if you are ready to transform your business, book a call at interviewconnections.com/call. And look, why Interview Connections? Like, can't I just do this myself? It seems easy enough. Or can I just have somebody on my team do this? Interview Connections is the first ever podcast booking agency. We have over a decade of experience booking entrepreneurs on podcasts, and this is all we do. This is not one thing of many other things. Like, the Amplified Authority program is the only thing we offer. So we eat, sleep, and breathe podcast guesting, and we know exactly the strategies it takes to see success with it. So we specialize as an agency in working with established entrepreneurs who feel like the best kept secret and who know that if the right people hear them speak, they'll close more sales. Like, it is just that simple. You feel like the best kept secret, and you know that if people heard you speak, the right people heard you speak, you close more sales. This is for you. We are specialized at helping you. And unlike courses or coaches, we do it for you. We do all the work for you. We make it easy for you. We've all invested in coaches. I love coaches. I love mentorship, but they don't do the work for you. We actually do it for you. So you've heard me mention the Amplified Authority program, and now I'm going to tell you all about it. So let's get into the details. What do you actually get? What is the price? Everything. So in the Amplified Authority program, I am telling you, this is the best program in the entire world for podcast guesting. We have crafted this so specifically. We have refined it over 11 years. We have continued to refine it to be so good. I'm obsessed with it. So number one, you get 30 guaranteed podcast placements on podcasts that are perfectly aligned with your goals and your target audience. These are not random bookings. They're not on shows that started last week. Like, we handpick shows that are perfectly aligned with your expertise, your target audience, where the host looks like a potential client, and we get you booked. We do all the work to research, find them, vet them, pitch them. And all we do is we connect you. So you can just schedule. You do the easy part. We will professionally design a podcast one sheet for you. So this is huge because that podcast one sheet is the key to getting you noticed and booked by the best podcast hosts. We'll design it for you. And we'll also make a media kit that has your headshots. It has a short bio and a long bio. Like, it has everything a podcast host needs to be like, dang, Rick is legit. So, like, we're going to make you look amazing to these podcast hosts. You're also going to get 2 interview audits. So the coaching and the guidance and the strategy does not stop at this masterclass. When you work with us, like, we're very unique because we're a done-for-you agency that is also supporting you in the strategy. So we're going to listen to your interview and actually give you personalized feedback and coaching. Like I mentioned, I'm working on an interview audit right now for a client, and I'm listening very carefully for the story she's sharing. I'm listening very carefully to how she's answering questions. I'm listening very carefully to what her call to action is. And I'm looking at, okay, she said her goal is this, and this is the call to action. Does that align? Like, we are listening to your interviews in a way that's going to help you reach your goals. You're also going to get access to incredible networking. We have about 200 clients at Interview Connections that are badasses. Like, they are successful entrepreneurs. They're running thriving businesses. And I host quarterly networking opportunities for you to come on Zoom and meet these other business owners and entrepreneurs, ask questions, share resources. It's kind of like a little mastermind every quarter where you can get together. And we also, every single week, there's a group coaching call. So that is the coaching element. So we dive really deep into the call to action. There's always a coaching call every month on your one sheet. So if you really want help with like your topics and your questions and your bio, every month there's an opportunity to get coaching on that, because we'll create it in month one, but then 6 months in, you might say, I want to change my topics, or I want to change my questions, or I want to edit my bio. And there's always an opportunity to join our team on a group call and get support from other members of the client community too. So you're not just in a silo with one point of contact, you have access to the client community, which is incredibly valuable, because we have clients that have been working with us for 5 years who have incredible wisdom to share. And we're also here to hold your hand and help get you started. Now, this program, it is not for everyone, but it is perfectly designed for entrepreneurs who are successful. Like, you've got a great business, you're not just getting started, but you just still feel like the best kept secret. And if your content flows best when you're responding to questions, podcast guesting is hands down where you need to prioritize your marketing. If you've plateaued in your business, like you just can't get across, like whatever revenue you've had the past couple of years, you just can't get above there, chances are you need visibility to new audiences. You've kind of exhausted your current network and Rolodex, and you need to get out there. This is for you. And if you truly believe and you know that speaking to the right audience and getting out there to new audiences is the key to your growth this year, then book a call with us at Interview Connections. Talk with me or Douglas one-on-one, interviewconnections.com/call. Now, our service is not for everyone. So if you are struggling right now, like you're struggling to make ends meet, you're not in a position where you can make a financial investment long-term, like this is a long-term commitment. I'm going to just tell you right now, this is not a $500 impulse buy. Okay. This is a commitment. We work with you for a year. So if you're just not in a place financially to make that commitment, this is not for you at this time. Now, what is the investment? The Amplified Authority program is normally $17K or 10 payments of $1850. Now, for you being in the masterclass, spending time with me, learning, getting the blueprint, if you invest by Tuesday, January 21st at midnight, you can invest paid in full $16K or 10 payments of $1750. So we'll take $1,000 off the investment. Everyone who signs up by Tuesday, the 21st is going to get like a podcast guest essentials bundle. So I'm going to order for you a microphone, a ring light, a microphone stand. Like, you're going to have the lighting and setup that you need, so you don't have to go figure that out. And I have some special bonuses for the first 5 people to pay in full for the program. So if you pay in full by Tuesday, January 21st, we are going to write your one sheet for you. So you sign up, you fill out the intake form, and we will write your bio, your topics, and your questions. If you do the payment plan, we'll work with you on it. You'll come to a coaching call. We'll collaborate with you. But if you want the full, like, do it all for me, Jess, like luxury experience, pay in full, be one of the first 5 to pay in full by Tuesday, the 21st. We're going to write it for you. And I'll give this to everyone who pays in full. We'll give you a 3rd interview audit. So you'll get 3 interview audits in the whole program. So your next step is to book a consultation call at interviewconnections.com/call. The purpose of that call is to make sure it's a good fit. We guarantee the bookings. So if we don't think that we can guarantee the bookings, we'll cancel your call. No hard feelings. But if we do believe that we can help you, we'll have a conversation, get all of your questions answered. We want to make sure that you feel good about this. So the best next step is to book a consultation call. Interviewconnections.com/call. And let's make 2025 your best year ever. Let's make 2025 the year that your visibility goes to a 10 out of 10 and you make the most of every opportunity you have to be a guest on podcast. So interviewconnections.com/call. Now, tomorrow we have session 3. Tomorrow is going to be incredible because you will actually hear directly from people who were where you are right now, sitting in this masterclass, thinking like, I kind of want to work with them, but I'm a little nervous. And like, what if it doesn't work? And how could it work for me? You're going to hear from people who were absolutely in your seat and how it's going for them in session 3. And then session 4 is going to be our bonus session with actionable strategies on how to repurpose your podcast interviews into more content and close more sales in your business. So we're only halfway through the masterclass. So now's your time to take action and like start implementing, book a call, and continue coming back for session 3 and session 4, because there's so much more value to share with you. We're only just getting started. So now Let's do that mic draw, Douglas. I'm going to hand the microphone over to you.
I know I got to get like a drum kit or something to actually do the
We
drum
really
roll of the
do.
audio. But all right, let me hit the wheel. And in three, two, one. Here we go. Stephanie, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. Clontz, Clontz. Stephanie Clontz is the winner of the microphone.
Let's go. Where's Stephanie at? I'm like scanning through the gallery view. Well, congrats, Stephanie. We will reach out to you to get your address so we can order that. Also, congratulations to Rusty who won it yesterday. I see you there, Rusty. Hope you get that soon. I know Amazon's usually pretty fast, so congrats. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope this was super, super valuable. We will see you back here. And your homework is to book a call. Keep working on your topics and questions from yesterday if you haven't done that. But your homework is to take action. I want you to take action today to actually get booked on podcasts. For many of you, that's going to be to book a call. We guarantee that you'll be booked. So if you're like, I really want to get booked, but I don't know how, book a call. If our program's not the right fit for you and you're like, it's just not right fit for me, go take an action to get yourself booked. Don't let this be a stopping point. I want to push you into action so that maybe next month or in 6 months, you're coming to us. But for those of you who know that this is the right fit for you, even if you're nervous, book a call and let's talk and let's get you moving forward. So thank you so much for being here. I will see you back here for session 3 tomorrow, same time, same Zoom link for a whole party of panelists and speakers. And thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.